We'll be continuing our focus on the 2013 budget proposal. You do know that lots of disagreements on the part of the House of Representatives got a position, the Senate also do, all arising from the presentation by the executive arm of government, the President, as a matter of fact. Well, yes, we'll bring you the reports of the Senate now. We'll anchor this on that.
The plenary session lasted several hours as lawmakers took their time to debate the 2013 budget. For some of the lawmakers, the 2013 budget is not offering Nigerians anything dramatically different.
Not much that is new that we have seen in this budget. It seems to us like it is more of the same.
The 2013 budget of 4.92 trillion naira is made up of 591.76 billion naira for debt service, 2.41 trillion naira for recurrent expenditure, and 1.54 trillion naira for capital expenditure. The lawmakers, however, faulted the allocation for recurrent expenditure and debt servicing.
We are spending 591 billion to service debt, just servicing debt. And we are worried by the rising profile of the country's debts. And if you go by what we have now, the domestic debt is about $35 billion.
Some other lawmakers also flawed the allocations from what they consider to be critical sectors of the economy, while some expressed dissatisfaction with the manner in which the Sure-P program has been managed.
2012, government voted 180 billion on social safety net projects like road, rail projects. Out of the 180, only 36.5 billion was utilized. And supposedly on mass transit, maternal and child health, road, rail projects, job creation through public works. Where is this happening?
However, for some lawmakers, the bone of contention is the level of implementation of the 2012 budget.
Because presently now, if we look at 2012 implementation, across all lines, from what we have seen, implementation has been very poor.
The contentious issue of petroleum subsidy appears to be addressed in the budget, as the Senate leader, Senator Victor Nduma-Egba, said the budget provides a sum of 971 billion naira for petroleum subsidy. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
Well, Dr. Austin Nweze joins us now. He's an economist. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you. Morning.
Well, again, back to the same old ritual, but this ritual raises a lot of concerns. The Senate, the House of Representatives are not on the same page with the President on this one. And at the end of the day, who knows how much they will eventually harmonize and pass. But one thing they've raised here is that they think that the implementation of the 2012 budget is only about 30%. And so leaves a lot to be desired from that perspective. So not looking good at all. So they can't justify that, can they?
Yeah, it's well, the major issue we have always had is the issue of implementing the budget. You know, because we always focus on the monetary side or the financial side of the budget, and then not paying attention to the human side, the human beings that are going to implement this. So, but we need to begin to address the human side of implementing of the budget, especially the implementation handled by people. They need to be trained. They need to be more educated, if you will, and they need to begin to do things that to make sure that, you know, because if you understand how this works, then you begin to know exactly how to channel some of these resources. And looking at the 30% implementation, you know, and it's not good news, if if I may say, but it's in the it's an improvement from the previous one. You know, once upon a time, government, the later Yaradua, it was 14% implementation, and we were told that there were 7 Nigerian money. You know, but 14% to 30%, you know, but, and don't forget that budgets are really theory, you know, they're just proposals, and this is what we plan to do. And
that is Budgets are theory or their proposals when they haven't been passed
That's right.
into law.
That's right.
But when finally they're passed, they become law.
Yes.
So to not implement the budget as you have said you will, it's
Yeah.
actually to break the law.
Yeah, again, don't forget there are two sides of the coin. The government is saying, look, we hope to generate this kind of money. Whereby we are not able to generate, we can borrow to make up the difference. And so the rate of implementation will also depend on the availability of funds. So that is one thing that we need to understand. If government said, okay, we don't have money to implement the budget.
Have they said that?
No, they have not said so.
Well,
Okay.
what do you make of the contributions of the senators?
Well, one thing is that checks and balances, yes. The senators, they have to make sure that the thing is, make sure that the government, because that's their job, make sure the government implements what they have said they are going to. And when you look at some of the items, components of this budget, you find that there has been some improvement, especially, the issue, the ratio of recurrent and capital expenditure is always, a very major thing. But between 2012 and 2013 budget, you find there's a little 2% or thereabout improvement on the capital budget, which is where making a little bit, even if it is as slow as a snail, it takes a snail to...
Did you support that? Because, I mean, we asked someone here on the program, and the person said, if you have cancer, he compared that with cancer. Would you say reduce it gradually or treat it gradually, or would you say, treat it drastically?
No, but when you take
Would you compare it in the very first instance to cancer?
You see, because one is 80% of the recurrent is personnel costs. Are you going to sack all the people in one fell swoop? So it is not, but they should have the political capital, to be able to really deal with, say, okay, close our eyes and say, let us improve more, the capital expenditure some more.
So for you, sorry, the recurrent expenditure is more about personnel costs. It's not about the leakages in the system.
Well, the major thing, again, you have to pay the people. 80% of that is personnel. First of all, you have to pay before other leakages. There are leakages in the system, because of the way. You see, I have a different, I'm proposing a radical approach to solving the budget issue in this one.
What would it be?
My proposal is for us to have a 5-year budget. I come into office as a president of Nigeria. I have my plans. I know that I'm going to stay 4 years. I say, okay, these are the things I'm going to do for 4 years. And these are the things these are the ways I can generate this money to do these things. Now, every year, for inflationary reasons, can make some adjustment, in all of this, rather than going through all this process. Because budgeting, annual budgeting in a developing economy encourages corruption.
Yeah, but as an ideal.
Yes, but the ideal thing for a developing economy like Nigeria is to have a medium-term kind of budgeting, which is the term and how long you're going to stay. I say 4 years. Then you can make 5 years, just in case you're returned the second time.
Okay, but if you recollect, the medium-term expenditure framework was submitted to the Senate, to the National Assembly, and that is being faulted because the key economic indicators were not included. Now, you're talking about a 4-year plan. If for the medium-term expenditure framework those indicators are not included, do you think we can still drop a 4-year budget?
No, because one thing is that our mindset is this annual thing. That's our mindset. And I was yesterday I was writing a preface to my new book, and I asked myself, can government solve every Nigerian's aspiration? Because it's like, do we have this mentality that this budget will solve all our problems? No. Government
budget alone?
Yes. Government anywhere in the world cannot solve all the problems or dreams, aspirations of every person.
But
the question is,
okay,
what can government do to provide, to deliver better service to the people?
Yeah, well, we'll build up to that, but
Yes.
I just like to raise this one because that sounds ideal. Have a 4-year, 5-year budget plan. Two things immediately pop up. You assume that, yes, the person, whoever wants to be president, deliberately does so.
That's
But
right.
we've seen where people just come in.
That's right.
You don't even know who the president will be in the next 4 or 5, the next dispensation. But
That's right.
in other climes, they're already being groomed. They're in the system. They know they're following processes. And then also, now, if you can't sort out this yearly plan, if it comes across as though the people don't even know what they're talking about, if it comes across, I say,
Yes.
because we had the member of the House of Reps here, and he says, it looks as if they're not together. Budget office gives you a figure, customs gives you another figure, the executive comes forward, and they're all in bits and pieces, 6s and 7s. And
Yes.
so, how do you plan for 5 years if 1 year they can handle it?
You know, because one, again, that in this knowledge economy, we need new tools. New tools of budgeting, new tools in doing things, new tools providing governance and all that. And we tend to not using old tools to begin to work in this new dispensation. So we need to begin to build the human capacity, to begin to appreciate data. How do you gather reliable data? How do you interpret
That's a
this
challenge
data?
here.
That's a challenge. So we need to. You find that you bring a CBN figure on inflation or employment and all that. It's a bit different from Bureau of Statistics. So we need to begin to have, build capacity, being able to interpret and using data or statistics to plan. Okay? Now, for instance, in companies get data about their customers. They use it to market and provide services and reach out to more customers. The same with government. We need these tools.
How do we acquire these tools? Where do we start from?
You begin to use technology, train people, build their capacity. You can have a new technology of doing things, and then people may not know how to use it. So we need to constantly train these people, so that they will be better informed on new ways of doing these things.
But can government ever admit error? Because if the House of the National Assembly say, look, this is only 30% implementation, and then they say, nope, it's over 50% implementation, how do you begin to progress if you can't even identify that there's an error, we've made a mistake, we need to correct it for developmental purposes and not for politics?
Yes, and again, the mark of good leadership is to be able to say, I am wrong, or I'm sorry, that I'm wrong. To admit that you're wrong, and then that's why we have opposition, so that they can present a better argument. And it's only good for government if there is a better idea in the marketplace. So they have to pick up not minding, because the Nigerian situation should go beyond politics. We're in a very critical situation. And like I said, people are expecting government to solve all their problems. Even young men that are not able to marry on time, they blame the government. Young women that are not able to marry on time, they blame the government. There are things that, that's the attitude. And we need to, begin to do that.
What if they have genuine reason? I mean, you make it seem like maybe the government really has nothing to do with that.
No, government will provide an enabling environment. But what I'm saying, in fact, is that government anywhere in the world can never solve or meet the aspirations of all the citizens. But the point is that this present administration say, okay, this is how far we can go. For the 4 years, for the 8 years we are here. And then another person comes up and continues, okay? But the thing is that we need to begin to, have a new orientation, the way we see government, and then begin to see ourselves, what role. One day, I'll just ask myself, what if I were the president? What if I were, what would I be thinking? Well, people are expecting so much from me.
Especially when you collect their taxes.
Yeah, we collect their taxes.
They have to ask you very, very hard questions.
One thing, especially Thomas Friedman, in his book, The World is Flat, mentioned this issue that oil-producing nations, including Nigeria, they don't have the culture of asking the citizens to pay tax, for as long as they don't ask them what they do with the oil money. So you don't ask us about what we do with the oil money, and we don't ask you about your taxes.
As if they own the oil money.
Yeah, so so we need to begin to be, and then the new way of governance in this knowledge economy is partnership. Government, we know, will not be able to provide everything, but we can partner with the private sector. The government can partner with the NGOs to deliver these services to the citizens.
I was going to ask you, did you see the budget presentation speech by the president?
Yes, I saw bits in the news item and all that.
Because it would seem that so far so good. What we have focused, it would seem that the angle of the National Assembly has dominated the budget discussion. I was going to ask you if you noticed what really cheered you up when you saw that budget presentation.
No, it's the education part of it. One is for a long while we have not had education taking such a prominent, such a large chunk of the budget, almost about 10% or thereabouts. So you find that for us to get out of poverty, we need to really make a deliberate effort to invest in education. Now, some people say, okay, why have so many schools? Why have all this? And I say that in Ontario, Toronto, in Canada, Ontario is the largest state in Canada. They have over 5,000 schools. Just one state. We can't say that of Nigeria. Our target should be, look, let's have a critical mass of educated people. Then once we have this critical mass, we begin to say, okay, brand or classify and all that. The US in the 60s and 70s, you remember, well, for us that went to school by that time, when you say you're going to America to go to school, they say, American university, no. But today, can you say that? Because it was a deliberate policy. Right. Let us get as many people, set up as many schools as possible, and then have a critical mass of literate people. First of all, those who can read and write. Before we go to the next kind of education, which John Adam mentioned, about that we need two kinds of education. One education that will teach you how to make a living, and the second education is the one that will teach you how to live. Those are the two kinds of education that we need. Right. So we begin to say, okay, look, education is a way out of poverty. So that we know exactly. And then by the time we get a critical mass, we begin to go another phase on economic literacy. So that policymakers will understand how to make policies that suit our environment. Okay. And then the citizens will also know how to read, the policies of government.
Well, that's going to be
we need
detailed.
That. Yeah.
Because, before they eventually come up with all of those, if they will approach it with that same intent, look at the informal sector. Because lots of the figures and calculations that they come up with, all of those offices, high-sounding words in the formal sector. But the informal sector, you know how the SMEs are struggling to see how they yearn for infrastructure to be in place. Not that they're asking government to do everything for them, yes, but the little that the government needs to put in place is non-existent. Yeah. And they feel so frustrated. And yeah, they talk about 50% implementation.
Again, that reminds me of my new book on the economics of leadership. I looked at leadership using the economic demand and supply. And I argue that good leadership is on the supply side. A good leader sees, even though the people they have not demanded, that government should do, just like in the power sector. All we're doing is to make sure that we maintain the status quo. But the next stage is to begin to really look ahead and say, okay, other areas. Now, the supply side of leadership, we take care of this and provide everything ahead, so that even though the entrepreneurs, some of the things that we want to do are not yet in existence, the supply side of leadership tells you that, look, you look ahead, even though people will grow to meet up with that demand. Like in economics, it's said that that supply will always create its demand, and that's leadership.
But here, do we see it play out like that? Because I remember some time ago, the former Minister of Information, Professor Dora Akunyili,
Yes.
at the time they were supposed to give quarterly briefing of how the MDAs have performed. It happened once, it never happened again.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have capacity. They said it out at the time, the capacity was not there for them to implement the budget.
Yes.
So who's talking about that now?
No, because one again, the people. Because one is the tools as a leader that you're using, and then the people around you. What systems have you put in place? Because what gets done is what gets monitored. It's what you monitor. I keep saying that if you ask your child to do dishes in the kitchen, and have you done it? Yes. But if you don't go and inspect it, you'll be surprised what you see. That the child might not have done that thing.
But
so
the question is, you use that example. Someone would say maybe that will be for a child learning to wash plates. At some later on, much later, you should be able to trust that when the child says, "I have done it," the child has done it and done it right.
Yes, even then, in a period of crisis, you don't leave it to somebody. You need to micromanage when you have crisis in your hands. Some people will say, "Okay, making sure that this is micromanaging," but again, you trust. But once in a while, you look in. The worst is that you trust that 100%. But again, without looking in. Surprise visits.
Let's explore this theory,
Yes.
because that may sound like not utopian, but somewhat utopian. In this kind of situation where before you get into a certain position for the president or somebody to appoint you, hypothetical, you may just get the backings of prominent Nigerians. So could it be that when they get into these positions, they feel that, well, since I have these guys, all these people's backing, well, yes, I might also just give this 40%. I think these guys will back me up, especially if I've given kickback here and there, and so that attitude comes in. Could that also be possibly one of the reasons why you can't have a good performance?
Again, no, it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that. One is that knowing why you're there. Are you there for yourself, or are you providing service? An opportunity. It's not everybody that is there. Again, does the person have the capacity to do what he's been asked to do? Yeah. Because a study done in the U.S. Some years ago showed that 95% of all the global workforce, working population everywhere, are doing the wrong jobs. So that's when the issue of right sizing, putting the square holes, and you find that some people would rather be doing, even within this organization, some people will rather be more effective or doing something else than they're currently doing.
From what you've seen in that budget proposal, whether or not they reduce the budget for a barrel to 78, 80, are you optimistic that the private sector can drive certain initiatives and grow this economy from that proposal?
Well, one other thing is that we need to de-emphasize these oil benchmarks and all that. I know that's a major source. But I want to see in every budget, how are we going to reduce this dependence on oil? We have other oil-producing nations like United Arab Emirates. They have oil constitute about only 5%.
Are you not saying it? I mean, because there is a conscious effort to also improve the Greek sector, which is an area they believe is viable. That's right. Are you not saying
what the current they're doing currently in agri is is laudable, moving us away from the subsistence kind of system to a more commercial agriculture. Okay, so making sure that seeds, high yielding seeds, are made available to farmers, so that they'll be able to grow crops, because let's face it, the world depends on Africa to provide the food that we need. Okay? And that's why some other countries, rich countries like Saudi Arabia, and Russia, and some other countries are having farming in Africa to feed their population. So we need to begin to look at the commercial side. Even forming, my concept, during last year's 2011 elections, I had this concept of Josephonomics, which is a concept of using a factor endowment, so that we begin to not just getting people into cooperatives, government should make sure that whatever is being produced, the farmer is sure of what? A buyer. So that you can move that into being a raw material base for industries. And have like Smeden, the small business agency, did a study. And they found that every local government, 774 local government in Nigeria, every of the local government, they have at least 2 products. They can build cluster of industries around. So we can begin to do all that and then push. So I want to see, a budget that will begin to. It's a good start, reducing the recurrent expenditure, and again gradually easing off and making, the ratio of about 60% capital expenditure and 40% recurrent expenditure.
Okay, that's all I have to let go. Dr. Austin Nweze is an economist. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you.